Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism, and this video is sponsored by contribution from Brittany. And Brittany wrote in, she actually did a paper, I don't know if this was in college or whatnot, on mental illness that she wanted me to read. So here we go. My personal theory on demonic mythology in conjunction with trauma and mental illness, an essay. My personal experience as a child growing up in a home with a mother with borderline personality disorder sparked me in a lifelong interest in this illness and its effects. Throughout my experiences, I have developed my own theories and beliefs about how and why it manifests and how it impacts the sufferers' lives. My purpose for sharing these thoughts here is to expand social awareness of the amount of suffering that is felt by the friends and relatives of those who have mental illness or personality disorders, rather than remaining focused on the person with a disorder entirely. If any of my relatives should happen upon this publication, I wish them to be advised that although much of their wrongdoings has sparked me an interest in these subjects, I am not writing about them specifically because they lack importance. You know what I would say here? Who cares what they think? I wouldn't explain jack shit to them. Regardless, whether they find it or not, they're not owed an explanation. Once you start explaining to them, that's cracking the door that they're going to kick in on you. They're giving them an angle. Knowing these people on an intimate level will serve no good, even for the sake of experience. Please let it be known, however, that my mother and family members around her share the similarities that I will go explain further in this publication. I have one blood relative I wish to remain in contact with, an aunt who has always been kind, open, understanding, and comforting to me in my life. Aunt Coffee knows who she is. I would say this: if Aunt Coffee has any contact with the people you've gone no contact with, that's a ticking time bomb. Always is. Always is. I have spent several years researching and learning about psychology, trauma, and mental illnesses from great minds such as Richard Grannon, Jordan B. Peterson, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, to name a few, and I have found that learning and understanding mental illness born from trauma have assisted in my healing from my own painful experiences greatly. It's my personal hardships that have led me to develop my own interesting theory of mental illnesses in connection with varying well-known religious beliefs. Mental illnesses are around us every day, but so are religious stories and teachings, which is why I began to wonder if there's a connection between the two. I think there is, and I was somebody who was anti-religion, not very religious for years. And for a long time, I went with the belief that these personality disorders, these behaviors, narcissism, borderline, histrionic, why are they like this? How are they like this? And I was like, where does it come from? Well, it doesn't come from anywhere. That's what I used to think. But it does, but that's not true. I mean, through the years, I've been able to make the connection, like, this stuff is based from cultural Marxism and communism. And what is every communist revolution, every Marxist revolution does what? Targets what specifically first? The churches, religion, religious figures. Every time. Every time. Because these people are demonic. Whether they're demons themselves or not, they are following a demonic path. Whether they are physical demons or demons incarnate, they're taking on some type of demonic presence. And the main fear and the main enemy of the demon is the church, is religion, is morality, is the Bible. Whether you're religious or not, I mean, that's just a fact. I have not read or heard of one yet, so I created my own. The Holy Bible. Okay. The Holy Bible, King James. Sorry, wrong pipe. The Holy Bible, King James Edition, is one of the oldest, most influential texts in Western culture and has had a major impact on traditional Western folk tales. Many of the characters, settings, and stories found in these tales are rooted in the Bible. All right, so you're making the same connection I am, even if they have been altered over time. In Western folklore and folk tales, demons and princes of hell are often portrayed as powerful supernatural forces capable of great evil. They are commonly depicted as having control over natural phenomena such as storms, earthquakes, and other disasters. They can also use their magical powers to inflict pain and suffering on people and grant wishes to those who ask them. I don't even think it's magical powers. It's just, you just go back to Adam and Eve. It's temptation. Human nature. It's temptation. In university classes and leisure researching, I have discovered, as many have, the existence of demonic entities as a commonality. Every belief system includes a dichotomy of good versus evil. Buddhists, Stoics, Christians alike share the belief that there exists a manifestation of darkness along with light, and that one cannot exist without the other. Entities often feature in fairy tales, where they can be seen as a source of danger and chaos, as well as a source of power for those brave enough to seek them out. I theorize that such demonic entities are recognized in today's modern world, and that they are also representative of the influences they may submit to, thus resulting in a miserable and damned existence, in other words, hell on earth. And when you're talking about fairy tales, you need to be more specific. You got to talk about the original fairy tales, before they were altered, the old fairy tales. Because if you read the old fairy tales, they are brutal. They are brutal. And the offender, the demon, the bad guy, usually dies at the end in a horrible, horrible way. Shit, even Cinderella. I mean, the real ending to Cinderella is the evil steps. They're all killed. The mother, the stepmother, and the sisters are all killed. They're put in hot, burning shoes and forced to dance until they die. It's brutality. I mean, but they changed it. They altered those fairy tales to soften them up, and that wasn't the whole point of them. The point of them was to avoid evil. The story of Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, written by Dante Alighieri in the 14th century, is rooted in Christianity and its beliefs about the layers of hell. Dante's journey through hell is symbolic of the soul's journey through sin and repentance. As the main protagonist, Dante descends through the 9 circles of hell. Each layer is more severe and more difficult than the last. This symbolism is reflective of the Christian belief that more serious the sin, the deeper in hell one must go to pay for their transgressions, and also demonstrates the Christian belief that each individual's sin is unique, and that the punishment should be unique as well. Hence the expression, the 7th layer. You come from the 7th layer of hell, the most evil person you could possibly be. Dante experiences each level of hell in his journey that is directly associated with his life and choices. I believe that much of our own suffering is a result of our choices and actions as well. Right, it's all about free will. And that's, again, Adam and Eve. God gave everybody free will. This is all about temptation, about fighting temptation, making a choice between good and evil. Which has been my main point about narcissism, about borderline personality. It is a choice. They choose this path. The 7 deadly sins of the Catholic and Christianity-based faith originated from Egyptian monks, who first created a concept of 9 deadly sins, which included ingratitude, despondency, along with the more commonly acknowledged 7 deadly sins: gluttony, lust, greed, wrath, sloth, vanity, and pride. These monks believed that the 9 sins represented the worst possible offenses, and that those who committed them were doomed to an eternity of punishment, and believed them to be the root cause of all suffering. I personally believe each of the 9 original deadly sins represent a characteristic or trait in a person who is suffering the consequences of their own actions, and that such consequences may manifest into the suffering person's reality, thus creating a hellish state of existence for that person, which is why I have chosen to represent each of the 9 original deadly sins by a singular prince of hell, or commonly known demonic entity. Demons and entities from hell or the underworld have been a part of classic fairy tales since ancient times. They represent the dark, the unknown, and the mysterious. In fairy tales, they often take the form of a villain or a temptress, using their persuasive abilities to lure unsuspecting humans into their wicked ways, or in other words, to persuade people into submission. They are a powerful force capable of seduction and destruction, and their presence in fairy tales serves to explore the complex relationship between good and evil. Demons and entities from hell remind us of our own capacity for both good and evil, and their roles in fairy tales help us understand our own motivations and desires, which is how I have come to realize that what some may call demonic influence or possession, others may call human behavior. It is in this context that I have come to connect what we understand as mental illnesses with the previously mentioned alleged demonic influences. It isn't a grand stretch of the imagination to see a connection between old writings, such as those in the Holy Bible, and the inflictions that plague mankind. After all, the name hysteria is derived from the Greek word hystra, which means uterus. According to JAMA psychiatry, this theory is repeated by Hippocrates, Plato, Cellus, Aratus, Soranus, and affirms hysterical person, which is just a name, but varied innumerable are the forms which it encompasses. This sexual theory held on through Augustine and throughout the Dark Ages until the 13th century, when it began to be replaced by the theory of demonical possession, leading to treatment by exorcism, and finally to torture. Organizing demons by name allows us to easily identify and comprehend specific characteristics associated with each one. By assigning demons to a characteristic, we can quickly and easily gain insight into the motivations and behaviors of evil entities in literature and mythology. This organization also allows us to compare and contrast different demonic personalities, which can help us better understand the various themes, symbols, and messages that these stories may be trying to convey, and furthermore, for the purposes of this theory's specific habits, thought patterns, and behaviors of people affected by mental illness. Upon further analysis of the original 9 deadly sins, I have found, according to Wikipedia, the modern concept of the 7 deadly sins linked to the monistic tradition of the early Christian Egypt, which is itself influenced by the Neoplatonist teachings of the School of Alexandria. This research also states that in the Platonic tradition, the human being is composed of 3 components: the body, soul, and the mind. Each component has its own primary function: appetite or desire, feeling, and mind. For each of these functions, the Egyptian monks identified 3 thoughts, or logisimoi, that lead to disorders. These evil thoughts can be categorized as follows. Physical, thoughts produced by the nutritive, sexual, and acquisitive appetites. Emotional, thoughts produced by depressive, irascible, and dismissive moods. Mental, thoughts produced by jealous, envious, boastful, and hubristic states of mind. I have decided to use this more elaborate model instead of the 7 more commonly known cardinal sins from Christian faith, for equal division and organizational purposes. The Egyptian monks' perception of evil thoughts that may manifest physically, emotionally, and mentally in the form of sin can be demonstrated by the table I have created below. Evil thoughts. Alright, so you got evil thoughts, associated sins: physical, insatiable, sexual, acquisitive; gluttony, lust, vanity; emotional, depressive, irascible, dismissive, despondency, ingratitude, sloth; mental is envious, boastful, hubristic, greed, wrath, and pride. In Western folklore and mythology, as well as legends and stories from ancient civilizations of various countries all over the world throughout history, demons have been a popular scapegoat for socially acceptable behavior of humans. I have spent a long time choosing which demonic entity by name should represent each of the sins I have already mentioned, and the behavior that they may be associated with. I have drawn on the influences of the King James Bible, Inferno by Dante Alighieri, and other online religious and spiritual resources such as Wikifandom's Biblical Scholar, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, to finally decide on who or what I would like to complete this theory. It's weird. I mean, a lot of this is all demonic-based, hell-based, and, can't help but to think and to mention there is certain religions that don't believe in hell, and it makes you wonder if that has something to do with their behavior. Not saying any one or two or three. I'm not saying any particular religion in general. I'm just saying there are religions that don't believe in hell. So if you don't believe in hell, just saying. One of the obstacles with organizing such a theory as this is the element of casting blame onto an alleged demonic influence for being responsible for the feelings or behaviors of a physical human being, because any demon can be blamed for any number of illnesses or negative thoughts. I was recently speaking to a friend of mine who is a devout Christian, and he shared his belief with me, saying, Christians believe sin is something we do to ourselves too, to destroy our own happiness and godliness. Based on the extensive research and most common descriptions of the most popularly known demonic entities, I have constructed this list of alleged beings, corresponding with the most common mental illnesses, psychological disorders, or manifested behaviors that impact our modern society based on their traits. Each being has been selected based on the characteristics most often used to describe them. Demonic entity and sin, associated behaviors. Lesion, gluttony, associated behavior, compulsive shopping and hoarding. Lilith, lusts, hypersexuality and promiscuity. Apollyon, greed, aggressive dissatisfaction, narcissistic personality disorder. Beli, despondency, despair, obsessive compulsive disorder, extreme social anxiety, behemoth, sloth, depression, Lucifer, envy, vanity, jealousy, envious, identity, crises, and personality disorders. Baphomet, Satan, pride, antisocial, against society, wishing to cause harm too. Baal, wrath, violence, Beelzebub, hubris, ingratitude, overconfidence, dangerous, risk-taking. But you can all boil it down to one thing, whether you believe in hell or not, I think. Because if you don't believe in hell, what are the consequences for your bad actions? None. If you don't believe in hell, what do you care if you're destroying society? This list was difficult to make, and it is in no way a substitute for psychological or even spiritual advice, because mental illnesses and traumatic events impact people in different ways, which is also why so many doctors and medical professionals mistakenly misdiagnose or effectively treat patients who are suffering from psychological disorders. For example, say two people are diagnosed with depression. Patient 1 struggles with finding motivation to clean their house and abuses alcohol. Patient 2 has become increasingly introverted and compulsively cleans her home. Both coping mechanisms, alcohol abuse and excessive cleaning, are indicative of anxieties that could be associated with depression that has resulted from recurring traumatic events over time. As I mentioned in the preface, people suffering from mental illnesses share similarities. I am referring to behaviors and vocabulary that those afflicted have in common. For example, while watching hours upon hours of the show Hoarders on A&E, hoarder should just be called borderline personality disorder, because that's what a hoarder is. And I've talked about this numerous times. It is about the hoarder controls their families through their hoard. It is borderline personality disorder. My husband and I recognized patterns in what these people were saying. Most of the subjects on the show explained their compulsive hoarding disorder with phrases like, "I don't know how it got so bad. I just lost control of it, and it's taken over my life." Imagine, if you will, a person saying those phrases again, where it is a demonic entity within, instead of a large collection of clothes and trash. But it's not, listen, the hoard isn't about the hoard, it's about the clothes or the trash, it's about the control over other people, which is what the borderline does. Another example of commonalities in the speech patterns of the afflicted can be found in people diagnosed or labeled as a narcissist. We all know selfish and self-centered people, but they are not who I am referring to. Narcissistic personality disorder is far more complex than being self-centered. This disorder, if born of childhood trauma, occurs when a child is either smothered or neglected by his or her parents. The child, as they grow, develops a new view of the world where everyone they have a relationship with is an extension of themselves, and they rarely, I cannot express how very rarely, accept and understand individuality. The term textbook narcissist refers to the behavior commonalities that society has come to recognize. People who continuously resort to victimhood mentality in every situation, who become angry or violent when they are caught in a lie or display extreme emotions or emotional dysregulation for attention when they are in a group setting, are scenarios that much of the emotionally regulated public has come to accept as someone who is a textbook narcissist, even though these behaviors can be demonstrated by anyone who is suffering from a wide range of traumatic response mental disorders. I am merely pointing out that other people who have not done any research on the topic at all can see there are similarities in almost every person who suffers from a mental disorder. The exception may be a psychopath, but I'm not referring to them here. My husband had an interesting thought one night that I felt was more than worthy to be shared here, as many of his thoughts are. He too has a long and difficult journey in the past trying to understand and heal from the experiences he suffered in the presence of loved ones with mental illnesses. My husband's life path had placed him in the prime position of understanding borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder. Bipolar is completely different. Bipolar is a chemical imbalance. Borderline personality disorder is a choice. There are two different things. It shouldn't even be lumped together. One is an actual disability, like bipolar. They can't control it. Can't be controlled. Borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, cluster B personality disorders are a choice. They are calculated, they are thought out, they are planting seeds of lies to be sprouted up later, to be used at a later time. It's not what the bipolar does. The bipolar has no control over the crazy shit that comes out of their mouth. The borderline will destroy your life, will plan it out. The bipolar will tell you aliens are landing. Well, maybe they are now, but that's a subject for another video. The thought that he shared with me went something like this: I wonder if a person who is diagnosed with borderline is psychologically trapped in the age in which they suffered their greatest traumatic experiences, and when they experience a trigger or an emotional reminder of that experience, they then cross over the metaphoric border between their past and their current age. Well, like I said, most borderlines are stuck in middle school. They're stuck in childhood. Sources such as the National Drug and Alcohol Research Center and the DEA report a person who is addicted to drugs or alcohol may be emotionally and mentally stunted in development, or in other words, their regulatory process of figurativity and literally stuck at the age in which they became active in their addictions. The same situation can occur from PTSD or CPTSD. With this information, my husband and I suspect this is why a person who has grown into adulthood and experiences an emotional upset reacts in such a way that is entirely inappropriate for their age. Well, they act like that because if they wouldn't act like that if it didn't work. Because their behavior controls the behaviors of others. That's why they do it. He has seen a grown woman experience disappointment and react to it by having a tantrum on the floor. Yeah, it's borderline personality disorder. We believe that people who have borderline personality disorder psychologically return to the state of mind where they were when they were experienced as a child and never found the opportunity to remedy the impact of it. Look, you're making it like, they can't help it. All of a sudden they're morphed back into childhood. They're always in childhood. It's just a raw reaction to not getting their way. Okay? The tantrum has a purpose. The tantrum isn't a consequence of them not getting their way. The tantrum is the tool for them to get their way. It's not a reaction. Okay? It's a purposeful tactic. It is planned out. It's not like, they can't help and now they're just like in this childlike tantrum. No. They are in full control when they are having that tantrum. Though they may seem like they are not, they are in full control of their tantrum. How do I know that? Because they can turn it on and off like that. Like that. They could go from hysterical tears to rage to calm like that. They are in full control. According to Psychology Today, a group of authors for the American Journal of Psychiatry published a study on the connection between traumatic experience and psychological disorders. They concluded that there does indeed appear to be a direct link between child maltreatment and later psychiatric disorders. Yeah, of course. They claim further that not only does the association of trauma to later psychiatric disorders remain even after accounting for other causes, it looks like such things as an emotional abuse response for much of the link with the development of mental health conditions. I want to take a moment to add that childhood trauma is often labeled as PTSD and CPTSD. The example of the difference between the two that I believe demonstrates PTSD and CPTSD well enough is this. PTSD, I was in a terrible car accident in the winter once, and now I have a mild form of post-traumatic stress disorder because I'm afraid and anxious to drive in the snow and feel impending doom if a loved one says they will drive in the snow. Whenever someone in a movie is driving in the snow, I experience the same fear and memories of the pain I felt when I was in a car accident too. CPTSD. My mother and father argued, yelled, and fought constantly. My father would leave for days, sometimes weeks at a time. My mother was very irritable and shouted at me even for making mistakes. When my father finally returned home, sometimes he was happy to see me, but other times he would be angry and scary. Now, as an adult, because of that prolonged exposure to stressful situations, I have a physiological condition. My adrenal glands are tapped out, and I have a hard time eliminating cortisol in my body, which has led to hormonal imbalances as well, because I rarely feel any relaxation at all. When a car pulls into my driveway, I immediately feel dread and fear, and I feel like I want to hide, and my heart rate increases. If I am in an argument where someone raises their voice to me, I weep uncontrollably because I am emotionally dysregulated, and I prepare to be abandoned. These stories are not true things that I have experienced, but it is an accurate representation of the difference between the two forms of stress disorders. This information is relevant to the overall theory I'm presenting here because I suspect that the recurrence of traumatic events or abusive influences on a person changes the chemical structure of their nervous system, resulting in the person suffering to develop coping mechanisms that are sometimes unhealthy. No. Yes, they have been abused. Yes, they have traumatic experiences. Yes, there's some PTSD and CPTSD. But they knew it was wrong. They knew they were damaged. And they still go and they make the choice. It is still a choice. Okay, you talk a lot about religion in here, but you're leaving out the point of free will. We have free will. It's a choice. Adam didn't have to bite the apple. He chose it. That's the point. These people are making a choice. I believe that if a person submits to one of the 9 aforementioned sins over and over again as the means to cope with their painful experiences, then they may subject themselves to their own personality design form of hell on earth. Famous demonologist Ed Warren said that there are 3 phases of demonic possession. Phase 1 is invitation, phase 2 is oppression, phase 3 is possession. Is oppression, phase 3 is possession. In terms associated with this demonic entities and mental illness theory, I propose a similar suggestion to Warren's that is more directly related to our physical reality and people attempting to uncover their origin of their own psychological unwellness. Phase 1 is traumatic experiences. Phase 2 is neglecting emotional needs, ignoring abuse, developing unhealthy coping strategies, experience unhealthy thought patterns. Phase 3 is manifested behavior as a result of repeating unhealthy coping strategies. To conclude, I will say that much of mythology and folklore stories demonstrate a lesson to be learned, and the listener or reader gaining an insight to better their lives in some way, sometimes for safety or caution, and other times for enlightenment or socially preferred behavior. This theory of mine is ultimately meant to form a connection between the belief understanding and to better explain to people that long-lasting effects of traumatic events are not their fault, and they are not powerless to healing if they wish to do so, because speculations, analysis, and theories such as this have the power to help confront and understand and ultimately cast out our own metaphorical demons. And you got her work cited here. Well, it's an interesting paper, Brittany, I'll say that. I agree with a lot of it. I mean, a lot of these cluster B personality disorders are based, in folklore, demonic possession. I don't think it's actual demons, okay? But what you're missing here, what I think this misses, is free choice. It's not, look, nobody's ever said, and I've never said, that these people, these narcissists, the borderlines, the abusers in your life weren't abused themselves. Never said that. But I knew it was wrong. You know it's wrong. Most everybody watching this channel knew it was wrong. At some point, just like when Adam took the bite of the apple, humans have free will. They have a choice. They chose to bite the apple. They chose to eat it. And that's the overriding thing. And that's what you can never let them off the hook for the choices they make. Whether it's the hoarder, the borderline, it doesn't matter. It's always a choice. It's calculated. When you say the borderline having a tantrum, it's just reverting back to childhood in a way, because that's what works for her. But that is a choice. It's not a switch where like she can't control. Of course she can. How do you know that? Because the borderline can turn on and off the tears like that. They could go from sweet to rage to crying, back to sweet to rage to crying within 30 seconds of each other. Within a 30-second span. You want to hear it? Go listen to the phone call with Narcissistic Mother. The first phone call on my channel. If that doesn't sound like a demon, I don't know what does. I don't know what does. So, but very interesting, and it was a very enjoyable read. So thank you, Brittany. And thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this if someone needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful. Because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both of my Rumble channels. Follow me on Twitter and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care.